Well, my dear cousin has told you some absorbing and spectacular things about me, especially about my being a circus rider. How could he even imagine such a thing? I was not a very slender girl, not even as a child. I was brave and daring, but not enough to put on tights and sit on the back of a trotting horse. He could have told also about how I fought with the troops of Garibaldi, or how I was wounded in battle and would have died had it not been for a miracle, or how I offered my... I'm truly disappointed with your memoirs, my dear, dear cousin.
Our cousin is simply repeating family legends. He was a small boy at the time and didn't really know any better.
Oh, Vera, my protector, Vera, my darling. Let me introduce you to my sister, Vera Petrovna Shelehovsky. You can trust what she says.
I understood Leola's aspirations. Her actions were not those of a crazy girl. There was much more to them. I remember once when we had a guest who came to visit our grandfather, the magnificent and enigmatic Prince Golitsyn. It was known that he was a Mason and a mystic. Leola talked with him for over 3 hours, and he answered all of her questions as if he had been talking with one as learned as himself. What effect did this conversation have on her? Perhaps she learned about a mysterious spiritual brotherhood which existed somewhere in the world. Or maybe he told her about the Rosicrucians and their ancient and secret magic rituals. This was the first time that Leola felt that she had heard the voice of her destiny. She decided then she would go in search of that knowledge. But she needed to be free to pursue that dream. That is why she married Blavatsky and then left him a year later.
Perhaps Vera is right. I sensed the mystery and rushed to find it. I felt there had to be a place on earth where pure knowledge was safely guarded. Knowledge about the universe, about God and man. From the teaching of Catholic missionaries, I learned that within one of the great mountains of the Himalayas there was a city of eternal light, a kind of paradise where saints lived, those masters who chose not to move on to eternal bliss in order to continue to help humanity here on earth. I was sure I could reach that place, overcoming all obstacles in my way. And that is what led me to India and the remote mountains of the Himalayas.
From the beginning, man has often not recognized the truth and, instead, has opted for the lies. So true knowledge has been hidden. Now, who has true knowledge? The great teachers from the snowy mountains. Oh, teacher, what must I do in order to attain wisdom? Oh, wise man, what must I do in order to reach perfection? search for the path, but be pure in your heart before you begin your journey. Before taking the first step, learn to distinguish the difference between rational knowledge and the wisdom in your heart. You must learn the difference between the teachings of the senses and the teachings of the heart.
The teachers, or gurus, instruct the student, or chela, on the different methods of psychic development based on the extraordinary potential of the human mind. That which to the European seemed a mirage, a fantasy or hoax, is the subject of everyday practice and learning for the student in a spiritual school. The Tibetan mystics have always kept secret the nature of their studies, just like the initiates of the ancient mystery schools and the Christian mystics during the Middle Ages. I also took a vow not to reveal anything about this period of my life. All I can say is that thanks to the Tibetan teachers, I developed my psychic abilities. 15 years later, I visited Russia. Sergei was by then a grown man, and we became acquainted really for the first time.
At the time, I was old enough to reach my own conclusions about this outlandish and diabolic woman. I could tell that in her youth she had been very beautiful, but when I met her she had grown fat and was not very attractive. She paid little attention to her personal appearance and usually dressed in loose gowns. I was surprised by her great skills. She had taught herself to play the piano and offered concerts in London and Paris. Although she had never seriously studied languages, she could speak English, French, and German, as well as her mother tongue. She wrote very poetic letters, and her poems were like music. By looking straight into your eyes, she could discern truth from lie. But when she did this, she was caught up in a fantasy, and her eyes would shine brightly with a strange light. She had the most intense blue eyes I have ever seen. There was something Saturnian and somber about her, but she was also very kind and a good person.
Thank you for your kind words, dear cousin. But the more I listen to you, the less I recognize myself. All this is so inconsequential. We don't have a lot of time to talk now about my eyes or about my gowns. Instead, let's talk about the mystery. That mystery that lies behind the curtain of what we call reality.
The Bible says, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form, and void and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God said, Let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years." An ancient Chinese book says, "The great Tao has no physical form, but it is the source of all form under heaven and earth. The great Tao has no passions, but it is what keeps the sun and the moon in motion. The great Tao has no name, but is the essence of all growth and all salvation."
Но оно вызывает рост и сохраняет все сущее.